It's one thing to threaten a stranger online. It's another thing entirely to do it to a friend of mine. And it's a catastrophic error to do it when that friend has a very, very good lawyer on speed dial. This man thought he was hidden behind a screen, anonymous and untouchable. He thought he held all the power. He was wrong. And I had his entire career, his freedom, and his future unraveled in less time than it takes to watch an episode of sitcom. We've all seen it, haven't we? That gut-wrenching moment when someone you care about is hurt by a coward hiding behind a keyboard. That feeling of powerlessness. But what if you had the skills to not just fight back, but to utterly dismantle the life of the person who dared to threaten them? If you know that feeling, if you crave that justice, hit the like button, subscribe, and settle in. Because today's story is about the most satisfying 45 minutes of my life. Let me introduce you to Sarah. Not her real name, of course. Sarah is one of those people with a heart too big for her own good. Kind, trusting, maybe a little naive. She's the friend who remembers your birthday, who brings you soup when you're sick. And like so many of us, she met someone online. It started innocently enough. A shared interest, flirty chats. He was charming, persuasive. He lived in another country but talked about visiting soon. They exchanged pictures. Nothing crazy but intimate. The kind of photos you only send when you believe you're in a private, safe space with someone you can trust. She had a first name, a general idea of where he lived, a vague description of his job. That was it. For her, it was enough to build a connection. For him, it was a carefully constructed veil. But then, the mask slipped. The plans to meet up started getting weird. Pushy. The tone of his messages changed from flirty to demanding. Sarah's intuition, that little voice we all have, started screaming. She listened to it. She politely but firmly backed out. And that's when the man she thought she knew vanished, replaced by the monster he really was. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah. And her voice. I'll never forget it. It wasn't just upset. It was shredded with a pure animal fear. It was the kind of shaky, tear-choked whisper that tells you something is horribly, horribly wrong. He threatened me. She managed to get out. He said if I didn't meet him, he'd post the pictures. Everywhere. Send them to my family. My work. I felt a coldness wash over me that had nothing to do with the temperature in the room. My knuckles were white around the phone. This wasn't just anger. It was a deep, primal protectiveness. This predator had targeted my friend. He had violated her trust and was now holding her dignity for ransom, thinking there would be no consequences. I took a slow, deliberate breath. The emotion was there, a rolling boil of fury, but I forced it down. I am, by trade and by nature, a problem solver. And right now, I had a very big problem to solve. Sarah, I said, my voice becoming steady, clinical. The lawyer switch was flipping. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Do not respond to him. Do not engage. Screenshot everything. Every threat, every message, every picture he ever sent you. Send it all to me. Now. Then block him. While she compiled the digital evidence of her own humiliation, my mind was already racing. He thought he was safe. He thought the distance and his anonymity were his armor. He didn't know he'd just declared war on a strategist. He sent her pictures of himself, a branded polo shirt from his company, a motorcycle with a visible license plate, a work laptop, open, with his entire Outlook calendar and proprietary information on display, sent, with staggering arrogance, to prove he was busy. He'd even sent photos taken inside his office, with other employees blurred in the background, completely unaware. This wasn't just a creep. This was an idiot. A proud, arrogant idiot who was about to learn a very painful lesson. I got to work. The digital breadcrumbs were all there. His online handle led me to a TikTok, which led to an Instagram with his full name. A quick search of that name plus the company logo on his shirt. Bingo. LinkedIn profile. Full name, full title, full place of employment. It all matched. The motorcycle license plate, I ran through a contact confirmed his address. In 45 minutes, I had gone from a first name and a threat to having his entire life laid out on my screen like a map. I had him. Completely. But evidence is one thing. Consequences are another. I wasn't just going to scare him. I was going to scorch the earth he walked on. I drafted an email. Not a rant. Not a threat. A cold, precise, professionally devastating legal missile. I addressed it to the CEO, the VP of HR, the head of operations, and the PR manager of his company. I laid it out, point by damning point. I identified myself as acting on behalf of my client. I attached the screenshots of his threats of revenge porn. I provided the links showing how the online persona making the threats was undeniably their employee. I included the photo of him in their branded apparel, the motorcycle with the plate, the non-consenting photos of his co-workers. And then, I added the coup de grace. I included his own messages, where he bragged about having sex with an ex on company property, and his detailed plans to do the same with my friend in his office. And then, with glacial calm, I highlighted the photograph of his work laptop, overflowing with confidential company data that he had freely transmitted across international borders. I gave them a choice, though I worded it as a statement of fact. I informed them that I would be forwarding this entire package to their local law enforcement for charges relating to threats and misuse of company data. And then I delivered the final blow. Since he had threatened a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil and had discussed traveling here, I would also be forwarding everything to the local field office of the FBI, as his actions constituted a federal crime. And should they, his employers, choose to retain him or still send him to the United States, I would personally ensure that federal law enforcement would be waiting for him the moment he stepped off the plane. I signed off. I didn't need to add, sincerely. This was a declaration of war. I hovered my cursor over the send button for just a second. I thought of Sarah's terrified voice. I thought of this man's smug sense of impunity. And I clicked. Whoosh. The missile was launched. The silence after I sent that email was deafening. And then my phone buzzed again. It was my law school buddy, now an assistant U.S. attorney. I'd given him a heads up. He just texted. Holy hell. You nuked this guy from orbit. The replies from the company started trickling in within hours. They were panicked, profusely apologetic, deeply, deeply concerned. They thanked me for bringing this to their attention. They assured me that the individual in question was being terminated immediately and that they would be conducting a full internal investigation. The PR manager's email practically dripped with sweat. You could feel their terror at the scandal I just laid on their doorstep. I leaned back in my chair. The cold fury had melted away, replaced by a warm, thrumming sense of vindication. It was done. This man went from having a career, a paycheck, and a future to being unemployed, unhireable in his industry, and the subject of multiple criminal investigations in the span of a single afternoon. He woke up that morning thinking he was a predator. He went to bed a pariah, all because he underestimated the friend of the woman he tried to victimize. He wanted to play with fire. I made sure he was the one who got burned. To ashes. There's a saying, don't start fights with people who buy ink by the barrel. In the digital age, I'd change that. Don't start fights with people who know how to wield the law like a scalpel. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about consequence. It's about the fact that anonymity is an illusion, and that true power doesn't come from threats and intimidation. It comes from knowledge, strategy, and the unwavering will to protect your own. If you felt that thrill of justice right there, do me a favor, smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? And of course, if you want more stories where the underdog fights back and wins, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching.